Oh wow, you actually survived your first day in the medieval era. Seriously, that's impressive. You're a rare breed, a walking miracle, a mud-caked unicorn in a world where stubbed toes and soup-related infections claim lives daily. But now what you think you can just stick around, blend in, maybe get a cozy little cottage with a thatched roof and a goat named something charming like Blister Nope. Becoming a proper citizen here. That's a whole different kind of madness. You're about to find out that fitting in isn't just learning to choose stone-filled bread without crying. It's a deeply weird, slightly smelly obstacle course of traditions, suspicions and ceremonies that make hazing rituals look like spa weekends. Still want in? Too late. You already licked that weird mossy bread yesterday, so now you're one of them. Or at least you're on probation. The first thing they tell you is that no one becomes a true villager until they've properly greeted the dead, and not in the respectful, say a prayer light a candle way. No, here you do it by physically visiting the cemetery and gently kissing the hand of someone who's recently departed freshish, if you will. The ritual is called the soul nod. Sounds poetic. It's not. It's clammy. The local priest escorts you there cheerfully humming something that sounds suspiciously like a funeral dirge remix. You're told to choose one. You pick the least green-looking hand. You're not okay. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm always curious who else is drifting through time with me. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Because your real adventure doesn't begin until you're told to kiss a corpse. That's not a metaphor. It's day 2, and your warm medieval welcome begins with what the locals call a soul nod, which in completely horrifying terms means hiking to the edge of the village cemetery and gently kissing the cold, mossy hand of a recently buried ancestor, not yours, by the way, just whichever approved spirit happens to be least decomposed that week. Don't worry, the priest helps you pick one. He's got a chart. You're told it's for spiritual grounding, but you're 90% sure it's just a test to see if you flinch. The priest keeps eye contact the whole time. The hand is clammy. Someone's goat sneezes behind you. You're not okay. And yet you pass. Because in this town, if you want to live among them, you must first acknowledge the departed. Some say it's a lingering pagan tradition. Others say it's just a slow news day. Historians still argue whether this ritual had real spiritual significance or was just invented by a bored gravekeeper with too many gloves. Either way, now that you've smooched the deceased and survived the emotional damage, the villagers finally stop side-eyeing you like a demonic tax auditor. One child even gives you a small rock. You assume it's a gift or a warning. Next comes the draping. A grandmotherly figure, who's been glaring at you since dawn, wraps a piece of burlap sackcloth around your shoulders and announces to everyone he's under the shroud. You're not sure what that means, but it sounds legally binding. She smells like cabbage and quiet judgment. Someone cheers, you think. Then, just when you start feeling accepted, the gravekeeper leans over and whispers, "Don't forget to return the shroud, or it'll come find you." Charming. At this point, your welcome committee disperses like chickens from a bucket. You're left standing in your scratchy new citizen cloak, holding your own confusion like a medieval IKEA manual. There's no map, no instructions, just vague gestures and an aggressive duck that seems to be following you. By sunset, you've been told twice that you must now seek permission from the Whispering Well. You laugh. They don't. Apparently the village well has a name, a mood, and a very firm opinion on newcomers. You're supposed to greet it, wait for a sign, usually a bubble or oddly timed echo, and leave a token. The priest gives you a potato with a face carved into it. "That'll do," he says. You walk to the well. The duck follows. Kneeling by the mossy stones, you whisper, "Hello," and drop in the potato. Nothing happens. You try again. May I live here? A bubble surfaces, the duck farts, the wind picks up. It's a yes, probably. That night, the village feast is held in your quasi-honour. They call it supper of the semi-accepted. You're given the good seat near the fire, but not too close to the stew. People toast awkwardly. A man with one eyebrow plays a single note on a flute. A toothless woman feeds you something she calls wishbone pudding. You don't ask. For dessert, they pass around a bowl of something suspiciously purple. No one eats it. You follow suit. That apparently is the test. The purple bowl is a trap. You passed again. As you curl up that night in a shared haybed with a family of 6 and one goat named Barbara, you realise something disturbing. You're actually starting to like it here. And just as your eyes begin to close, someone pokes you in the ribs and whispers, "Tomorrow you meet the well demon. Bring a sock." Morning in medieval land hits you like a chicken to the face, literally. One crashes through the thatch. Roof squawks directly into your soul, then waddles off as if you inconvenienced it. Welcome to day 2. Your eyes are crusty. Your back feels like you slept folded in half. You basically did. And someone has stolen one of your shoes. Or maybe a goat ate it. It's unclear. Either way, you're starting your second day with one sock, no privacy, and a mysterious obligation to consult the well demon. The locals are all pretending like this is totally normal. Oh, it's just the morning offering, they say, like you're delivering scones to a polite but unpredictable sea witch. Turns out each new hopeful citizen must return to the Whispering Well and get this singer tuned to the water while dangling a sock over the edge. Not any sock, the one you wore yesterday. The sweaty, battle-tested sock of survival. You ask what happens if you don't do it. They just blink, so you go, limping in one shoe and clutching the sock like a security blanket from hell. You reach the well, clear your throat, and attempt your best musical offering. It comes out somewhere between a funeral dirge and a sea shanty being attacked by bees. The well echoes you back with a low burp. Someone behind you gasps. Success. Your sock is then lowered ceremoniously into the well and left there. He's been marked, someone murmurs. Great. You're now part of a tradition that involves soggy footwear and mild embarrassment. But you're not done. You're now summoned to the home of the village's most feared and respected figure, Granny Blodwyn. No one knows her actual age. Some say she predates the sun. She definitely predates toothpaste. Her job, administering the test of nourishment. This is where it gets culinary. You're handed a bowl of pottage which sounds fancy, but is really just hot swamp with carrots. If you can eat 3 bites without gagging, you're of strong constitution. If not, you'll be placed on the watched list and given extra onions to strengthen your spirit. The trick, you're told, is to breathe only through your mouth and chew with existential indifference. You succeed barely, though. A rogue beetle tries to claim your left nostril mid-bite. Granny Blodwyn nods solemnly and slips a boiled root into your hand. For energy, she croaks. And visions. You eat it, immediately regret it. The world gets fuzzy. You're not sure if you've unlocked a higher plane or just licked something mildly toxic. Either way, you now see colours you don't have names for. While you're still slightly hallucinating, you're escorted to the local barn to meet the community livestock. This isn't just an intro, it's a loyalty test. You must successfully identify which cow is possessed. It's a village inside joke. The cow isn't actually possessed, probably. You point to the one with the sideways tail twitch and the eyes of someone who's seen things. Everyone nods. You've passed again. You're really starting to get the hang of things now. By afternoon, you're invited to a name carving. This is how villagers record new citizens, by carving your temporary name into an old log next to the well. Why temporary? Because you don't earn your real medieval name until at least 3 people call you something behind your back, and it sticks. For now, they choose Wobbly Sock. You suspect this one will last. The log ceremony is conducted by the village notary, a man whose main qualifications appear to be possession of all his fingers and an extraordinary moustache. He hands you a blunt knife and gestures to carve beside names like Boil-Face Mildred of the Spit and Two-Finger Tom. You do your best. It mostly looks like angry spaghetti, but no one complains. In fact, someone claps. You might be forming a fan club. And just as you think things are calming down, the priest reappears with what can only be described as a cursed satchel. "Time for your welcome bread," he says ominously. It's bread, yes, but made with 7 symbolic ingredients, each representing a quality of a good citizen: patience, courage, loyalty, ignorance, thick skin, literally pig skin, confusion, and raisins. You must eat it while standing on one leg and listening to a tale of the village's founding, told by a man who only knows 4 facts and makes up the rest on the spot. You learn nothing except that the founding involved a lightning strike, 3 sheep, and possibly a misunderstanding about soup. You eat the bread, you do not fall, you are applauded. By nightfall, you are partially initiated. You're invited to sit at the edge of the inner circle during village council. You don't get to speak, but you can nod meaningfully and hand out berries. As the fire crackles and someone begins to play a tune on a fish-shaped flute, the eldest villager leans toward you and says, "Tomorrow we climb the tree that judges." You blink. She pats your arm. "Wear something loose." The next morning you wake up already regretting the loose-fitting tunic. It's riding up in places no breeze should ever touch. But tradition is tradition, and apparently the tree that judges doesn't take fashion criticism lightly. The tree looms just outside the village, a twisted, gnarled behemoth that looks like it once tried to eat a church. It's got knots like angry faces and branches shaped suspiciously like pointing fingers. According to local law, if the tree likes you, it will bless your presence with a falling acorn. If it doesn't like you, well, a local boy once lost an eyebrow. That's all anyone will say. Your task: climb it. Not all the way, just high enough to touch the branch of truth, an outstretched limb wrapped in ribbons, feathers, and what appears to be someone's old shoe. The tree sits atop a small hill, which means all eyes are on you as you ascend in your billowy tunic, hoping desperately that nothing rips and that no wildlife takes sudden interest in your exposed ankles. You climb, you touch, nothing bites you. A squirrel throws an acorn at your head, which is apparently a good sign. The crowd below erupts in cheers. One woman weeps openly. A bard begins composing a song titled "Wobbly Sock and the Tree of Fate." It's not catchy, but it's heartfelt. With your tree trial complete, you're now invited to adorn your form, which sounds like a medieval fashion show, but is really a ritualized looting of the village, lost and found. Every citizen gets to pick one symbolic item from the communal chest, usually a tattered belt, a mysterious key, or a suspiciously clean spoon. You choose a leather strap with a faded carving of maybe a dog, a pig, a very judgmental banana. The village elder inspects it, nods solemnly, and declares it a sign of inner vigilance. You don't know what that means, but it feels like a compliment. Now comes the truly awkward part, the cowl of candid confession. It's exactly what it sounds like. A scratchy wool hood that blocks your peripheral vision and makes you look like a stressed mushroom. You're expected to wear it for the next 2 hours, while going door to door, confessing one personal truth to each household. Doesn't matter if they know you. Doesn't matter if they want to hear it. You start small. I once pretended to be allergic to jazz to avoid a date. That gets a polite nod. Next house. Sometimes I say "you too" when the waiter tells me to enjoy my meal. The old woman smiles. Third house, you panic and blurt, "I think about sandwiches more than my family." They invite you in for soup. By the time you've completed your circuit, the cowl has itched its way into your very soul. But the villagers seem warmer. Like now that they know your strangest thoughts, they're no longer afraid you're a demon in human pants. Which means you're now eligible for the circle of slightly better standing. It's a real thing. You sit closer to the fire during gatherings and are allowed to choose the second ladle of stew instead of the 8th. This is medieval luxury. As you bask in your newfound, almost citizen glow, a young boy approaches and solemnly hands you a chicken feather. From Clive, he whispers. He likes your energy. You assume Clive is a chicken, but with this village, it could just as easily be a ghost, a goat, or the wind. The day ends with the ritual of the remaining sock. Remember the one you didn't throw in the well? Yeah, it's time to burn it. This symbolizes letting go of the world you came from. A little dramatic considering you still miss dental floss, but you comply. As the sock burns, villagers hum a haunting tune that might actually just be someone snoring on rhythm. You feel something. Maybe acceptance. Maybe just the first stages of smoke inhalation. Just before sleep, you're summoned by a boy who looks suspiciously like he's been aged by witchcraft. He says it's time for the Midnight Whisper Circle. Midnight. You're led deep into the woods to a circle of stones where 10 villagers sit in complete silence. One by one, they lean forward and whisper the strangest thoughts they've had that day. I think the moon is watching me undress. I suspect my cow is smarter than my brother. I sometimes chew bark for fun. You're not sure what the point is, but it's deeply therapeutic. When it's your turn, you simply say, I miss toothpaste. They all nod in unison. It's dawn now. You haven't slept, but your heart is strangely full. You're tired, itchy, lightly traumatized, but definitely no longer a stranger. And as the group disbands and you stumble back toward the village, a voice behind you says, tomorrow we wash in the stream of selective memory. You don't ask what that means. You just sigh, stretch and whisper, I'll bring extra socks. Your feet squelch down the muddy path toward what the locals call the stream of selective memory, which, spoiler alert, is neither selective nor particularly clean. It's basically a glorified ditch with delusions of grandeur, winding lazily past the edge of the village and occasionally burping out the scent of expired turnips. But this is where you'll perform the fourth rite of semi-citizenship, the ritual cleansing of unhelpful thoughts. You're told this stream has memory-sifting powers, able to wash away certain past regrets while enhancing others, which sounds scientifically questionable at best and emotionally chaotic at worst. Still, every villager goes through it, and several now seem disturbingly chipper for people who eat beetroot stew 5 times a week. An old man named Dribber hands you a loofah made of horsehair and dried moss. Scrub wisely, he intones. Some memories bite back, that's the only instruction you're given. You disrobe behind a bush shaped like a deeply ashamed goose and step into the stream. It's colder than betrayal. Your left foot immediately regrets everything it's ever done. As you begin to scrub, your mind floods, not with soap bubbles, but with visions. Your high school locker combination. The time you said you too when someone wished you happy birthday. The entire theme song to a cartoon you haven't thought about in 20 years. Are these the memories being selected? Is this what makes you worthy of village citizenship? Or is the moss mildly hallucinogenic? Historians still argue whether this ritual was meant as true memory cleansing or just an elaborate excuse to get people to bathe at least once a year. Either way, you emerge shivering, confused, and somehow nostalgic for moments that may or may not have happened. You're handed a damp robe and led back into the village, where a small crowd cheers, not for your bravery, but because someone spotted a turnip that vaguely resembles a bishop. Still you bask in the applause, like a freshly dunked champion. Now comes the ceremony of shared discomfort, where you and 3 other newcomers must sit on the village log capital L, which is really just a splinter-ridden bench placed awkwardly under the glare of the sun. You sit there, arms at your sides, back straight, while elders recite a list of things you must pretend to understand if you wish to stay. It goes something like, the tax system there isn't one, but you should act stressed when it's mentioned. The proper way to squint at the sky to predict goat behaviour. The belief that soup spoons carry spirits, especially when dropped. The ancient rivalry with the neighbouring village over who first discovered turnips. The concept of land frowns, alleged areas of soil that express disappointment. You nod solemnly through it all. The woman beside you begins to weep when the goat's sky squinting is mentioned. You pat her shoulder. You're bonding. Next, it's time for the Festival of Slight Errors. This might be the most baffling tradition yet. For one afternoon, every villager must commit a small, harmless mistake on purpose. It's said to confuse evil spirits and keep fate humble. You watch as people walk backwards, wear shoes on opposite feet, or intentionally put honey in their ears just to see what happens. You're handed a spoon and told to butter the village sign. So you do, and a group of children begins chanting a rhyme about you and dairy-based vandalism. You're not sure if it's praise or insult, but they offer you a pet frog named Kenneth afterward, so it feels like a win. As twilight settles, you're invited to the pre-swearing swear-in, which sounds more aggressive than it is. Basically, you're asked to sit in a circle and make several extremely specific oaths, like, I swear never to interrupt a cheese aging ceremony unless summoned by Raven. I shall not covet my neighbour's goat, unless the goat clearly shows interest. I will respect all communal turnips, especially those used as hats. You repeat them word for word accidentally, adding probably to the goat part. The elders eye you, but let it slide. A small bell is rung. A spoon is thrown in the air, no one catches it, and you are now officially pre-sworn. As the sun dips below the twisted tree line, the air fills with a quiet buzz of insects, laughter, and the rhythmic croaking of frogs discussing local politics. You sit with your robe drying stiffly around you, and Kenneth nestled in your lap, pondering the very reasonable question, is this what normal feels like now? Because somehow, amid the turnip chants and buttered signage, you feel a strange sense of belonging. No one here wears deodorant, half of them think birds are spies, and yet you're one of them. And just as you begin to drift into a peaceful daze, a man with 3 eyebrows, yes, 3, leans over and says, tomorrow you will duel a shadow to claim your fire name. Of course you will. At dawn the air tastes like damp straw, an indecision, and you already sense that today is going to test your commitment to medieval eccentricity. Your tunic is still slightly crusted from yesterday's stream ordeal, and Kenneth the Frog has vanished without a goodbye, as if sensing that something stranger than communal memory baths is about to happen. You are summoned to the village centre by the tolling of a bell that might once have been a pot. There a man in a cloak so oversized it could double as a wedding tent announces, in a sonorous, oddly theatrical tone, that it is time for you to face your shadow and claim your fire name. The crowd gasps not because they're surprised, but because that's the traditional reaction, no matter who's being summoned. You half expect dramatic music to begin playing. It does not. But someone does start rhythmically banging 2 ladles together. You are handed a candle, already half melted, and instructed to follow a barefoot monk named Egregor to the reflection hollow. A shallow clearing where the light is always just wrong enough to make you uneasy. Along the way, Egregor tells you stories mostly about mushrooms and regrets, and casually drops the fact that the last person who failed the fire name trial was temporarily renamed Smokey the Unworthy. You walk faster. The ritual is straightforward. In its strangeness, stand in the clearing. As the sun rises, let your candle cast a shadow. Then speak your full name, past and future, to your shadow's face. If your voice cracks, if your shadow wavers, if a chicken walks through the beam of light and disrupts the silhouette, all signs you're not yet ready to be named by flame. Naturally, no one mentioned this shadow business yesterday when you were busy buttering signs and confessing your inner sandwich obsessions. Still, you square your shoulders, plant your bare feet in the mossy soil, and raise your flickering candle. Your shadow stretches across the grass, taller, thinner, somehow more confident than you remember. It looks like it's about to offer unsolicited life advice. You speak your modern name, followed by a pause. Then you improvise something vaguely elemental and medieval sounding. Wobbly sock son of dawn-like keeper of the burning potato. It echoes. The wind rustles. A raven squawks, your shadow holds. No chickens intervene. Egregor claps once sharply. It is done, he announces. Someone hands you a crown made of slightly damp hay and declares you eligible for elevated communal responsibilities, which is either an honour or code for latrine duty. With your fire name secured, you're now ushered into the next level of medieval absurdity, the language of local silence. Every village has its own dialect, but yours also has a collection of sacred silences, 7 to be exact, each used in specific situations. There's the silence of morning, soft and still, the silence of suspicion, loud, breathy, prolonged, and the infamous silence of too much garlic, which involves passive-aggressive nose-holding. You're expected to learn all 7 by afternoon. A workshop is held. It involves exaggerated facial expressions, interpretive yawns, and one man who hasn't spoken since last winter demonstrating the silence of regret while milking. You try your best to mimic, though your version ends up looking more like an attempt to sneeze and cry at the same time. The instructor squints but nods. You are at least earnest. Next, you must navigate the trial of discomforted phrases, where villagers bombard you with confusing idioms, like the chicken flies backwards at moonbreak, or don't borrow another man's blister. These sayings are often used in legal disputes or romantic rejection. Your job is to repeat each phrase, then interpret its meaning while standing on one leg and holding a clay pot filled with lukewarm porridge. The pot is metaphorical, probably. By some miracle or sheer mental exhaustion, you pass. One elder leans in and whispers, "You remind me of a young moss-jawed Gregory," which might be a compliment or a warning or both. By early evening, just when your brain feels like fermented bread dough and your legs have the strength of overcooked leeks, you are presented with the letter of near acceptance. It's handwritten on parchment, sealed with what appears to be hardened marmalade, and includes the phrase, "pending further compliance with local peculiarities." Essentially, you're close to being fully welcomed, but they want to see if you'll endure one more rite with grace and zero sarcasm. You nod solemnly, already bracing for something involving goats. Instead, you're handed a scroll and asked to memorize and recite the oath of communal reliability at sunrise tomorrow. It's 6 stanzas long, written in rhyming couplets, and contains the phrase, "By the broom of Auntie Glorp, I swear to stir the soup clockwise." You try not to laugh. You fail. This too is part of the test. As the night deepens and the firelight flickers across the village square, you sit quietly beside the elder, who smells faintly of smoked cheese and licorice. He looks at you with something like approval, though it could just be squinting, and says, "Tomorrow you'll meet the goat who remembers. Bring a pebble." Of course. You tuck the scroll into your itchy tunic pocket, a small round stone, and whisper into the darkness, "I'm absolutely not making any of this up." And somewhere in the woods a raven laughs. Morning arrives, not with a golden cascade of light or a gentle chorus of birdsong, but with a low grunt from a nearby pig and the distinct crunch of someone biting into a turnip far too close to your ear. The village is already humming with anticipation, or perhaps mild anxiety, for today marks the long-anticipated meeting with the goat who remembers a creature of legend, mild flatulence, and according to local belief, uncanny emotional insight. You are led barefoot and burdened with increasing skepticism toward a fenced-off section of the village known simply as the Fold. This is not to be confused with the laundry fold, which no one here practices, or the philosophical fold, which you are fairly certain the local baker once tried to explain, using only crumbs and the sound of wind through his beard. The fold contains precisely one structure, a wooden lean-to propped against an ancient oak, and within it the goat. She is grey lopsided, and her left eye seems to look into the future, while her right eye contemplates vengeance. Her name, you're told, is Marjorie, though some refer to her with hushed reverence as Mistress of Remorse. You're introduced by the eldest villager, who reads aloud from a scroll made of cured pigskin, and speaks as though narrating an epic poem. The introduction includes your fire name, your semi-accomplishments, and a brief but suspiciously embellished account of your sock-burning ritual. Marjorie does not move. She chews slowly, deliberately, and locks eyes with you in a way that makes your knees reconsider their commitment to standing. You're instructed to place a pebble, specifically the one you've carried since last night, between your palms, hold it to your forehead, and then present it to Marjorie with an offering phrase. For memory's sake, I seek your grace. You recite it, voice wavering only slightly. The goat blinks once, and after a long pause, filled with interpretive snorts, gently nudges the pebble with her hoof. The villagers erupt into cautious applause. Apparently you have been accepted, though no one quite explains by whom or for what purpose. A younger villager whispers that Marjorie's approval is unofficial citizenship, but only for those with an appropriately vague aura. You suspect he's teasing you, but his eyes carry the wild, too long in a root cellar glint of absolute sincerity. Immediately following your psychic goat consultation, you're pulled into a rite known as the Binding of Usefulness, a tradition that asks you to demonstrate one meaningful skill, no matter how obscure, which might benefit the village. Lacking traditional survival abilities such as smithing, cobbling, or summoning rain through interpretive coughing, you default to storytelling, hoping your modern wit counts for something. You are given a small platform near the communal fire pit and asked to recount a tale of courage loss or surprisingly good bread. You choose to share a heavily sanitized version of a late-night fast food adventure involving a raccoon, a drive-through window, and your dignity. You embellish it liberally, adjust the setting to include medieval ingredients like turnip oil and cursed jam. And by the end, the children are gasping, the elders are nodding thoughtfully, and one man has begun sketching what might be a raccoon or a very bold badger. Your tale, strange as it was, earns you the title of Tongue of the Twilight Bench, which apparently comes with an obligation to narrate at least one festival per season and to bless new harvests with improvised rhymes. You accept with cautious enthusiasm. By midday, you're invited to rest, but only as part of the next rite, the sleep of shared breath. This tradition involves napping beside an elder in complete silence, while they slowly inhale and exhale, guiding your rhythm as you drift into a lightly snoring symbiosis. You are paired with Elder Brune, who has a beard so vast and tangled it seems to host several birds and at least one button. As you lie beside him, on a bed of crushed straw and leaves, he begins a slow, deliberate breathing pattern. You match him, heartbeats slowing, mind settling until your thoughts fade into the rhythmic dance of air and age. When you awake, someone has placed a small woven bracelet around your wrist. It's a sign that you have synchronized, a term the villagers use as both a spiritual designation and a convenient excuse to nap during important meetings. With dusk approaching, the final rite of the day is whispered to you by a girl holding a lantern made of beetles. She says it with such gravity that you nearly forget the absurdity of her accessory. Tonight you'll carve the spirit of your first doubt. You're handed a chunk of softwood, a dull knife, and instructed to think of the first moment during your arrival when you questioned your ability to survive here. You remember it instantly. It was when someone tried to cure your headache with fermented goose breath. You carve what might be a goose or a badly drawn cloud and present it to the village's wall of wooden doubts, a structure more symbolic than practical, but deeply respected nonetheless. As the carving is hung with the others, small tokens of inner panic, rendered in pine and ash, a candle is lit beside it. The villagers hum a tune that's part lullaby, part sea shanty, and entirely off-key. You feel, not for the first time, that you are part of something so profoundly strange, it circles all the way back to comforting. And as the last note fades and Marjorie the goat lets out a low approving grunt, someone leans over and murmurs, "Tomorrow you'll wear the feathers of uncertainty and face the bridge of maybe." You wake with a feather in your mouth and no immediate memory of how it got there. It's white, slightly bent, and smells faintly of goat, though by this point everything does. Outside your woven leaf blanket, the village is already in motion, preparing for what has been ominously whispered as the day of maybe. Today's trial is all about navigating uncertainty publicly and with feathers. As part of the rite known simply as crossing the bridge of maybe, each aspiring citizen must don the cloak of indecision, a garment made entirely of mismatched feathers and failed sewing projects, and then cross a very narrow wooden bridge over a marsh that has claimed more shoes than anyone is willing to admit. The bridge is real, the danger is mostly exaggerated, and the meaning is, well, up for debate. The villagers say the bridge tests your balance, not just of body, but of purpose. Those who hesitate too long on its creaky planks are said to be cursed with indecision for a year and a day. Those who cross boldly and confidently are rewarded with the title of unlikely yet acceptable. You are handed the cloak of indecision by a boy who informs you it used to belong to a man named Gareth the Almost. The cloak is itchy, wildly asymmetrical, and flutters with every breath of wind like a startled bird orchestra. You drape it over your shoulders and march with as much resolve as your exposed knees will allow to the edge of the bridge. The crowd watches in reverent silence, interrupted only by the occasional slurp of communal porridge. A small child begins chanting, "Maybe, maybe, maybe," and soon half the village joins in their tone, neither encouraging nor discouraging, just weirdly neutral. You step onto the first plank. It creaks. The marsh gurgles ominously. You take another step. The feathers whip around your head like judgmental birds. You resist the urge to crawl skip or dramatically fake an injury, and instead walk one foot in front of the other, embracing the glorious absurdity of your situation. Halfway across a breeze picks up, sending your cloak flaring outward like a disgruntled peacock. You pause, not from fear, but from sheer disbelief at the sentence running through your mind. I am walking across a maybe bridge in a feather cloak to earn vague social acceptance from people who think soup can be haunted. You take the final steps, the crowd erupts, the chant shifts to mostly, mostly. Mostly, you've earned your new designation, mostly acceptable. A woman places a crown of woven beet stems on your head. It smells earthy and slightly accusatory. Your next assignment is less physically terrifying, but considerably more baffling. The compilation of half facts. This is a sacred village task where each member contributes one piece of knowledge they believe to be true, but which cannot be verified. You're given a blank parchment and told to write your own half fact for inclusion in the village archives. You consider claiming that rainbows are actually goose laughter made visible, but decide on something marginally more plausible. If a turnip spins 3 times before boiling it, grants protection from ankle injuries. The elders nod. One even mutters, "Yes, yes, I've heard that from a cobbler's niece." The archives, incidentally, are kept in the hollowed-out trunk of an extremely unimpressed-looking tree. Your parchment is carefully rolled and inserted beside such classics as "Cats are wind-powered," "Never trust bread that sings," and "The moon is afraid of triangles." Having added to the community's body of vague wisdom, you are now considered eligible for the listening post, a meditative rite in which you sit blindfolded on a tree stump and eavesdrop on the forest for signs of acceptance. You are told to listen for rustling leaves, frog songs, or the sound of your own doubt turning into bark. The stump is cold, the blindfold smells like cabbage and forgotten dreams. You sit for what feels like hours, hearing nothing but wind, the distant caw of a bored crow, and your own stomach negotiating a peace treaty with last night's beet stew. Finally, just as you're ready to fake enlightenment, a twig snaps nearby, followed by a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, "Maybe." You're told this counts. The whisper was the forest, or perhaps a squirrel. Either way, the message is clear. You're not quite one of them, but you're also not entirely not one of them. You exist in the delicate realm of honorary ambiguity, a space reserved for those who persist, despite not knowing why. To celebrate your achievement, you are permitted to attend the Evening of Intermittent Revelry, a village celebration that occurs at unpredictable intervals and with inconsistent energy. One night it's a raucous affair of dancing and fire juggling. The next it's three old men playing spoons while everyone else stares into the middle distance. Tonight is somewhere in between. There's stew, there's a mildly cursed flute, there's a game involving dried beans, hopeful winking, and a goose that seems to be judging everyone. You are given a ceremonial beverage made of dandelion petals and rainwater steeped for exactly 11 minutes. It tastes like hope and dirt. And as you sip, someone taps your shoulder and solemnly says, "Tomorrow you join the procession of misplaced intentions. Bring something you no longer need and wear your cloak backwards." You sigh. Of course you will. When dawn cracks open like an overcooked egg and spills pale light over the thatched roofs of your increasingly inexplicable home, you find yourself seated cross-legged in the communal square, attempting to remove a goose feather from your boot with a spoon borrowed under suspicious circumstances. The morning air smells like moss wood smoke and complicated responsibilities, and today's rite is one that even the most long-toothed villagers speak of with a tinge of confusion and awe, the procession of misplaced intentions. No one can explain exactly how this ritual started. One elder vaguely recalls that it originated after someone tried to invent a wheelbarrow that moved backward to reflect emotional regression. Another insists it was created by a baker who lost a loaf and blamed society. Regardless of its murky beginnings, the ritual now stands as one of the village's most symbolically loaded events, a literal parade of objects, people and gestures that once had a purpose but now simply exist awkwardly. Your instructions are clear, only in their ambiguity. Bring something you no longer need, wear your cloak backwards, and walk slowly around the village while humming a tune you don't remember learning. After a moment's reflection, you choose your ceremonial wooden spoon, the one bestowed upon you during the trial of discomforted phrases. You haven't stirred anything brave since then, and its oddly curved handle makes it nearly impossible to store discreetly. You tie it to a string, hang it around your neck, like a relic of poor decisions, and invert your feathered cloak, which now flutters at your face, like a confused bird trying to give unsolicited advice. You are not alone. The entire village is preparing. One woman carries a broken lantern with a solemn expression, claiming it once held the spirit of a headache. A man walks beside her, balancing a saddle made of celery. A child drags a wooden leg that once belonged to a puppet who wanted too much. Everyone moves with deep theatrical sincerity. The procession begins. You step in time with the slow pulse of a drum that might just be someone rhythmically slapping a wheel of cheese. The line snakes through the village in solemnity, interrupted occasionally by someone muttering their misplaced intention aloud. "I thought I could learn to speak tree. I once courted a statue. I wanted to fly using only bees." You're not required to say yours aloud, but the urge strikes you halfway down Turnip Alley, and so you whisper to no one in particular, "I thought I could blend in." The wind doesn't answer, but a chicken does appear beside you, as if in quiet solidarity. The procession ends at the field of useful forgetting, which is less a field and more a patch of uneven ground just past the compost heap. Each participant places their object into the basket of release, a large woven container filled with questionable dreams and the occasional unripe pear. When it's your turn, you hesitate, then drop in the spoon. It lands with a soft clatter and is quickly swallowed by a cape made of discarded mittens. You are then led to a stone bench, handed a warm cup of letting go tea, essentially moss mint and mild delusion, and invited to reflect, while staring into the pond of acceptable confusion. Its surface ripples without provocation, as if reacting to thoughts you haven't finished thinking. It reflects your image, only shiihoko when you're not looking directly at it, a fact that everyone treats as completely normal. Just as you begin to settle into a contemplative trance, someone tugs your sleeve. It's a teenager wearing a vest made of bark, informing you it's time for the ally exchange. This part of the citizenship process is rarely discussed in advance because it relies entirely on impulse discomfort and a peculiar sense of forced intimacy. You are escorted into a small clearing and asked to choose one person, anyone in the village, with whom to swap a secret and a promise. You are not allowed to choose someone who has already given you soup, bandaged your feet, or held your hair while you panicked about becoming a turnip. You narrow the list. Eventually, you choose Melda, a woman known primarily for shouting at thunderstorms and knitting scarves for trees. She looks at you with wide, skeptical eyes and says, "If you're lying, my geese will know." You believe her. You sit cross-legged in the grass, whisper something deeply personal. Perhaps too personal for a woman with unknown goose powers, and receive a promise in return. If you ever forget your place, I'll remind you with bread. It feels oddly binding. You shake hands. A leaf falls dramatically between you. Now bound to a local by secret and carbohydrate, you are given a small charm made of acorn caps and horsehair. It represents communal tension turned cooperative curiosity, a phrase that makes your ears feel fuzzy. As dusk rolls over the rooftops and shadows stretch like yawns, the final rite of the day approaches the mutual shrug. It's deceptively simple. Each evening, villagers pair off and in complete silence look each other in the eye and shrug. This act signifies that no one fully understands what's happening, and that's okay. You partner with a man named Frigg who smells like burnt barley and regret. Your shared shrug is synchronized, gentle and affirming. You might be friends now. As the village dims into candlelight and someone begins softly plucking what might be a lute or a large flattened raccoon, you feel the slow unfurling of something resembling belonging, not in spite of the madness, but because of it. And just as you're about to drift into a soot-stained, feather-tickled sleep, a voice near your ear murmurs, "Tomorrow is the day of reverent missteps. Bring only your worst idea." You exhale. Of course, by now you've stopped questioning the logic of your life. The feathered cloak still smells like damp duck and regret, but you wear it with a strange pride. You've learned to nod solemnly when someone declares that the moon has opinions, and you've even begun offering unsolicited turnip advice with the quiet confidence of a person who once climbed a tree to prove sincerity. Today, however, promises a new level of absurd devotion, the day of reverent missteps. The instructions are predictably both clear and baffling. Arrive at the central square. Barefoot, carry with you the worst idea you've ever had and be prepared to share it aloud in front of the village and possibly the local pig who often wanders in uninvited and judges without blinking. You're also told not to comb your hair, lest vanity corrupt the stumble. As you trudge towards the square, passing villagers adorned in mismatched shoes and backwards tunics, you begin to reflect on your many bad decisions. Modern candidates parade through your brain, attempting to microwave a salad, downloading that dating app designed for ghosts buying stock in a lettuce subscription service, but none feel medieval enough. You settle on this. I once tried to explain algebra to a rooster using only interpretive dance. It's honest, it's niche, and it's guaranteed to earn both confusion and reluctant respect. At the square, a large rope circle has been laid out on the ground. Each participant enters alone, performs a holy misstep, a deliberately awkward movement meant to symbolize spiritual imperfection, and then shares their worst idea aloud. You watch as one man hops in a zigzag while shouting, "I once married a loaf of bread," and the crowd cheers. A woman twirls in place before admitting, "I shaved my dog for a warmer hat." The applause is almost reverent. When it's your turn, you step inside the circle, trip over your own ankle, flail a little too dramatically, and then land in a deep, shaky lunge. It's unintentional, but effective. The crowd hums approval. Then you declare, voice cracking slightly, "From the weight of exposure, I taught a rooster algebra. He failed the exam. I failed as a teacher." The silence that follows is powerful. Someone sobs. The pig enters the circle, sniffs your knee and walks away. The ritual is complete. You are led away, gently offered a drink called clarity tea, which tastes like boiled socks, and allowed to sit on the bench of reconsideration, a special spot near the fire where citizens go to process their own foolishness. It's deeply cathartic, and the view is excellent. But the day isn't done. Next is a rite that straddles the line between theology and theatricality, the cloak of borrowed piety. For 1 hour, each villager must embody a religious figure from a neighbouring village's pantheon, mimicking their speech patterns, gestures and blessings, not out of mockery, but as a form of cultural empathy. You are assigned the role of Thornall the Whisperer, a minor deity from 2 valleys over, known for his constant mumbling and firm belief that squirrels are divine accountants. You are handed a scroll of common Thornelian phrases. May your socks always align. Beware the third acorn. Speak less, twitch more, and sent to bless passers-by in his name. Your delivery is shaky at first, but you quickly find your rhythm. You bless a cow's tail. You whisper into a jar of pickled onions. You even interpret a cloud as a sign of impending generosity. The villagers nod approvingly. Through this role play, you realize something peculiar. Their devotion is less about literal belief and more about shared rhythm. They don't worship with fear, they honor, through imitation, humility and the comforting chaos of communal nonsense. As evening creeps in and the sky shifts to its usual bruise-purple hue, you are summoned once more to the old stone chapel, not for worship but for the ritual of presumed holiness. Here, you and the other, not quite newcomers, are asked to appear deeply enlightened for no less than 12 minutes. The process involves sitting cross-legged on the floor, gazing slightly upward, and responding to random questions with non-answers cloaked in vague spiritual gravitas. What is the meaning of turnip light, someone asks. You inhale slowly and say, only the moon knows how root vegetables dream. Where do missteps go after they're forgiven? Into the soup of our subconscious, you reply, blinking slowly as if receiving divine confirmation. The villagers are impressed. One calls you a voice from the future. Another offers to name their next goat after you. You decline politely but firmly. Before you can stumble off to bed, there is one final obligation, the mutual blessing of bare feet. You and another semi-integrated villager must touch toes and bless each other's journey with spontaneous poetry. Your partner, a girl named Yipper, rhymes struggle with puddle and toe with let's just go. You respond with a shaky haiku about cheese time and forgiveness. It's not good, but Etor. I felt. The ceremony ends, not with applause, but with a collective sigh. You are now one misstep closer to belonging, not because you're perfect, but because you've proven you aren't. And in a place like this, that might be the holiest act of all. As you lie back under the stars, cloak bunched behind your neck, and a chicken settling onto your chest as a makeshift blanket, someone mutters beside you. Tomorrow is the harvest of unearned gratitude. Bring something you didn't earn. Wear bells, because of course you will. By now you've stopped reacting with surprise to the daily proclamations of ritualized absurdity. You simply nod, tighten your makeshift belt, which is actually a braided onion stalk, and ask practical follow-up questions like, how many bells exactly, or are spoons considered gratitude if found not given? This is what adaptation looks like in a village where the sacred calendar includes events like the Night of Regretful Ears and the Turnip That Remembered. Today's event, the Harvest of Unearned Gratitude, is surprisingly straightforward. Every villager must bring forth an object, favour, or identity that they did not earn but benefited from, and express public gratitude for it, while wearing bells on their person. The bells are not merely decorative. They are said to wake the ears of the sky, a phrase that makes no meteorological sense but is whispered with such conviction that questioning it feels vaguely criminal. You are provided a sash adorned with tiny bronze bells that jingle with every movement. The effect is festive. A small child giggles and calls you Sir Tinkle, a title you accept with dignity and mild emotional damage. Your unearned item is a hand-carved walking stick gifted to you after your first accidental fall into the cabbage cart. You never asked for it, didn't pay for it, and have been leaning on it like a dramatic noble ever since. It feels right. In the centre of the village square, a wooden platform has been erected, wobbly slightly, mossy and decorated with last season's ceremonial radishes. One by one, villagers step onto it and declare their thankfulness. I am grateful for my brother's fishing net, which I borrowed without asking and never returned. I thank the ghost in the west field, who scared my hay into stacking itself. I express gratitude for my neighbour's patience every time I forget his name and call him Mildred. When your turn arrives, you step forward, bells jingling like nervous laughter. You raise the walking stick, clear your throat, and say, "This stick has supported me more than most ideas I've had this week. I did not carve it, I did not deserve it, but I thank the cabbage that caught me and the hand that lifted me after." A silence follows, then one slow clap, then more. Even the pig grunts with what might be approval or indigestion. Either way, you've passed another invisible milestone. With the morning ceremony complete, the village shifts into the distribution of leftover recognition. This part is less public, more intimate, and according to the locals, spiritually asymmetrical. You are handed a bundle of anonymous compliments written on scrolls. Your task: distribute them to others based on intuition alone. You wander the village, handing compliments like a slightly bewildered motivational bard. To the woman tending mushrooms, you hold silence like it's a gift wrapped in fog. To the man who sleeps in the hay with one shoe, you dream in circles and your feet remember. To the pig, your snout knows more than our council ever will. Oddly, this may be the moment you feel most connected. Gratitude in this place is less about what's deserved and more about what you choose to notice. And the fact that no one questions your compliment to the pig means you are dangerously close to real integration. Next comes the March of the Unexplainable, a light-hearted but obligatory parade during which villagers carry objects whose meaning has either been lost to time or never existed in the first place. You are handed a ceramic boot filled with sand and a single almond. You are told only this: walk with confidence. Do not explain. And so you march along with others bearing fish-shaped umbrellas, jars of imaginary rain, and a dog that might be a cat with good posture. The procession is slow, meandering, occasionally interrupted by livestock, but always accompanied by a song hummed in a key no one fully agrees on. It's joyful, absurd, and somehow deeply moving. By afternoon, you are summoned yet again to the edge of the village, where a small altar made of beetroot and driftwood has been prepared. This is the site of the whispered exchange, a brief but sacred moment in which you offer the wind your most useless thought of the day. You hesitate, then whisper, "What if socks are just portable rugs for feet with commitment issues?" The wind rustles approvingly. A chicken lays an egg at your feet. You consider this divine validation. Finally, the day concludes with the circle of accidental grace. The villagers gather around the fire, and one by one share things they've done wrong that accidentally turned out well. I spilled milk on a beet and discovered cheese borscht. I forgot to feed the goat and met my wife instead. I sneezed during a wedding and uncovered a conspiracy. When it's your turn, you recount the time you mistook a sacred bell for a dinner pot and accidentally summoned the entire village for a feast that didn't exist. The laughter is real. You are embraced by two people and a dog wearing a tunic. And as the embers glow orange and someone strums what might be a harp or a poorly strung fence, the village elder leans towards you with eyes full of the world's softest mischief and says, "Tomorrow we attempt stillness in motion. Bring no expectations, only knees." By the time the sun stretches itself over the crooked horizon and spills muted gold across the frost-kissed fields, your knees are already regretting the enthusiasm with which they greeted this entire medieval escapade. You shift your weight, carefully brushing loose straw from your tunic and murmuring a quiet apology to the beat you accidentally sat on. It was apparently part of someone's art project. Today is dedicated to a ritual more philosophical than physical, though still guaranteed to bruise something. Stillness in motion, an event described by the locals as the act of going nowhere meaningfully. Its purpose: to teach aspiring citizens the delicate balance between movement and awareness, between acting and being acted upon, between purposeful existence and elegant public stumbling. You are told to meet at the eastern edge of the village, just beyond the suspiciously flat rock that villagers refer to as the thinking seat, though no one sits on it, and its only known use involves drying out unusually wet gloves. The morning fog hangs low, and from its folds emerges a figure known simply as Lem, the village's appointed walker of contradictions. Lem wears boots that don't match and speaks only in questions. Today he will lead what is known as the spiral path, a winding, nonsensical route that loops through meadows, around barns, across shallow brooks, and once very briefly through someone's unattended root cellar. Participants are instructed to follow him precisely step for step, and yet never directly behind him. You are encouraged to mimic but not match, to move but not arrive. The idea, they explain, is to internalize the rhythm of the community without becoming lost in its shape, to hold your own path while respecting the collective absurdity. It's meditative, it's symbolic, it's also exhausting. The walk begins. You step forward, then sideways, then pause while Lem stops to inspect a pine cone, as though it owes him money. Around you, villagers move in semi-formed lines, their limbs bending in deliberate slowness, their expressions distant, as though listening to music only their ribs can hear. At one point, someone gently somersaults over a sleeping dog and lands in a cart of wet laundry. No one reacts. The dog sighs. You try to keep pace. It's harder than it looks. Every step is a negotiation, too purposeful, and you feel out of sync, too hesitant, and you fall behind a man who seems to be walking exclusively with his shoulders. Your legs ache, your mind drifts, and suddenly the path loops back toward itself, bringing you face to face with Lem, who raises a single eyebrow and whispers, "Where were you when your thoughts caught fire?" You have no answer. This apparently is correct. After the walk, participants gather in a wide circle and sit in contemplative silence, broken only by the occasional sneeze or startled hiccup. One elder rises and recites the litany of almost a village poem, honouring near misses' forgotten intentions and projects abandoned halfway. It includes lines like, "I nearly built a roof from reeds, but the ducks claimed them first. I meant to write a song of praise, but wrote a soup recipe instead." Each stanza is greeted with soft laughter and thoughtful nods, the kind that suggest everyone has at some point tried to teach a chicken to juggle or misinterpreted a prophecy scribbled on cabbage. Once the litany concludes, you are invited to partake in the test of partial silence, which involves carrying an egg from the riverbank to the bell tower, using only your inner monologue to guide your steps. You mustn't speak, hum, or sneeze. You must walk a path marked with chalk and goose feathers, all while balancing the egg on a wooden spoon. Your thoughts betray you immediately. What if I step on a beetle? Does this egg feel judgmental? Why is the goose following me? Still you manage? Barely. The egg arrives unbroken, and the spoon is returned to its shrine beneath the elder's bench, a sacred nook filled with utensils from past initiates, some burned, some blessed, all inexplicably sticky. In the afternoon, You're pulled into the Chapel of Nearly Holy Things, a small structure built from stone mud and ceremonial doubt. Inside, a mural depicts the village's spiritual cosmology, including gods of winded livestock, divine indecision, and one deity who appears to be a broom with arms. You are told to select a figure from the mural and imitate their divine pause. You choose Borfla the Observer, a minor celestial noted for never interrupting anyone, not even soup. To embody him, you must stand with your hands behind your back, breathe through your ears metaphorically, and nod thoughtfully at passing thoughts. You are surprisingly good at this. Your imitation earns you the honorary title of participant in the moment between blinks, which sounds like a job you made up during college, but is worn with great pride by the locals. As the sun dips low and the bells begin their slow evening chime, the same bells once rung to warn of cow uprisings, you are ushered to a final ceremony for the day, the hanging of the unspoken intent. Each semi-citizen is handed a ribbon and asked to whisper into it the one-wish desire, or fear they dare not say aloud. You choose a fear. You whisper it with more vulnerability than expected. You tie it to the communal tree, where it flutters among dozens of others, each colour-coded by tone and emotional undertone. A hush falls over the group. It is said that if your ribbon knots in the wind by morning, the village hears you, and as you step away, cloak dragging in the soft dirt, a small earnest child presses something into your hand, a leaf carefully folded into the shape of a spiral. For tomorrow, they whisper, when you go to the edge. Of course, the edge. You look toward the horizon and someone murmurs behind you. Tomorrow is the final reckoning of presents. No shoes, no lies. You nod, breath slow. One more day. The final morning arrives with a peculiar stillness, as though even the birds have decided to hold their opinions for a few extra moments. The village breathes around you, like a creature asleep with one eye half open. You rise without shoes, as instructed, and step onto the cold earth, each toe making quiet negotiations with the dew-covered grass. Today is the reckoning of presence, a ritual that, unlike others, does not offer you the comfort of metaphor or misdirection. There will be no interpretive dances, no symbolic root vegetables, and certainly no goats dressed like saints. Today is not about blending in or proving your value through riddles and recipes. Today is about standing still, quite literally at the very edge of this place, the physical, emotional, and spiritual boundary between being of the village and being forever around it. The villagers guide you silently to the perimeter, a craggy ridge that overlooks a shallow valley of mist and memory, where the wind carries echoes that may or may not be your own. You are led by a procession of the eldest elders, none of whom speak. They do not need to. Their faces, worn by time and soot and quiet victories, are enough. Once you arrive, a circle is formed with ash and bone-white stones. You are told to enter alone. Inside, the rules are simple but harsh. Stand in place, eyes open, no movement, no speech, no pretense. Remain as yourself fully, with no borrowed roles or rehearsed humility. This is your final rite, not of passage but of arrival. The villagers encircle you at a respectful distance. Some sit, others kneel. A few hold hands, their fingers woven like roots. No one blinks. And so you stand. The wind picks up. Your cloak flutters slightly. The leaf the child gave you yesterday, tucked inside your collar, trembles with a kind of delicate purpose. At first, your thoughts race, panicked flashes of modern anxieties, awkward memories, even songs you don't particularly like but can't forget. You resist the urge to shuffle, to scratch, to glance at the horizon for escape. Then slowly your breath settles. The noise within begins to thin. You're aware of everything at once. The pressure of your heels in the soil, the gentle clatter of bones tied to a nearby staff, the heartbeat of the pig that's wandered close again, watching with the impassive stare of a living punctuation mark. Time becomes irrelevant. Not because it vanishes, but because it begins to expand in all directions, like warm wax melting over the shape of something truer. You begin to feel what the villagers have felt all along, that community isn't forged by declarations or ceremonies alone, but by sustained presence. The act of remaining when things are uncertain, the discipline of quiet acceptance, the miracle of shared absurdity. You don't know how long you stand there. It might be minutes, it might be the length of 3 burnt pies and a regretful haircut. Eventually, the oldest elder steps forward. She carries no scroll, no staff, no crown of wilted herbs, just her hand outstretched. You take it. She presses her forehead to yours and murmurs a single phrase. Now you're woven in. The circle disperses. You are not congratulated. You are not elevated. You are not renamed. Instead, someone hands you a simple task, a basket of dry roots to carry a child, to watch a hole to dig for tomorrow's planting. Nothing ceremonial, just necessary. And in that, you understand citizenship. Here was never about transformation, it was about return. Return to usefulness, to participation, to living awkwardly, but honestly among others, who are just as uncertain as you. You have become one of them, not by mastering their strangeness, but by allowing it to reshape the parts of you that once needed explanation. As the sun sets and your bare feet are dusted with ash and memory, or someone laughs nearby, really laughs, and someone else offers you a bowl of soup without comment, you accept it without question, because now it's your soup too. You look toward the sky, and for the first time since arriving in this place of fumbling rituals and poetic nonsense, you don't feel the need to ask what comes next. You already know. And now, gentle listener, as the final embers of our strange journey begin to fade, take a moment to rest in the quiet certainty that not everything in life needs to make perfect sense. You have walked barefoot through fields of doubt, you've worn feathers of uncertainty, and you've whispered your fears into the wind. You've bent and stumbled and stood entirely still, all in pursuit of something not labelled or certified, but simply felt. Let the images settle. The flicker of a fire you didn't start, but learned to tend, the rustle of trees that always knew your name, the lopsided smile of a villager handing you soup without ceremony. These are not just signs of acceptance, they are gentle proofs of belonging, earned not in grand gestures, but in the soft repetition of showing up. Allow yourself now to ease back into your own space, the one outside of turnip festivals and ceremonial goats, but carry this warmth with you. Let it linger behind your eyes, low in your chest, wherever you keep your quiet strengths. Breathe in once slowly, deeply. Hold that presence. Then let it go, not because it's over, but because now it's part of you. Sleep, dear listener, in the strange peace of knowing you are in some deeply improbable way already home.